Hello everybody and welcome. This is Ketchup here, and this Fighting EX Layer video is designed entirely to talk about the input system of the game. It's called the command type, and I want to talk about the differences between classic and progressive. There are still a lot of players out there that aren't too familiar with the differences between the two, and more importantly, why you would choose one over the other. So this video is to basically compare the two side by side and talk about why you would pick one of the two options. We're going to start with classic, and I'm going to be picking Garuda for the very specific reason of I do believe personally that he does suffer from one of these methods, and he's always suffered with it. And we're going to start with classic, and we're going to go with Jack because why not? Now, when I say suffered from it, there are obviously solutions, there are workarounds, and you'll see very quickly why I'm using him as an example. But first things first, we're going to talk about the classic input system. This basically means that as Fighting EX Layer is a legacy game from the previous EX games, all of the inputs as we remember them have returned in all of their glory. So we know as Garuda players from back in the day, looking at his command list, he has down forward punch, DP forward, half circle back forward, and then reverse DP, and his supers are, you know, down forward, down back, all the classic stuff. These are his classic moves. They return completely exactly as we remember them. Nothing has changed here, including the, you know, especially how to do them. It's all the same. If you played Garuda before, you can play him now, and that's the same for every single character in this game that was in the previous title. That's the basics of classic. Now, mechanically, certain things have been brought into the game with classic, and that's mostly the, let's just call it awkward input commands, where sometimes you would get a lot of negative edge. There's a lot of what seems like leniency on the inputs, so you get a lot of moves that sometimes you don't want. Sometimes you'll get accidental specials that you didn't dial in. Sometimes trying to do a DP, you know, let's try and do a DP. Sometimes a player might try and DP and get a special or a super by mistake. This is all basically because of the classic control system. And back in the day, we just had to get used to them. You know, if you grew up playing EX games, or, you know, you even were one of the small parts of the community that played it at a higher level on the arcades, the old input system took a while to get used to. And you had to kind of wrestle with it until you got familiar. Unfortunately, that pretty much has seemed to return massively in Fighting EX Layer. So if you're an old school player, it's not going to be a problem for you. But just to give you an example, a common issue would be, you know, if we try and run in and do low medium into down forward, we will get DP. Now, the motion we just did there was run in, down medium kick, and then forward and punch. The game seemed to think we're doing a DP there, even though I didn't actually input the DP motion. That's because of just what feels like how much leniency there is to get moves. It actually causes a lot of problems for you. So there's a lot of time having to be taken to get around the inputs of classic, but it can be done. It's just a little bit awkward, and it will take some time. Now, that is going to be classic. If you remember it, it's going to play like it. That's all there is to it. Secondly, I want to talk about progressive, which is the new input system that is new with this game in particular. We've been using it a lot today, and when I say we, I mean, you know, myself and Mustard. And I've just come fresh off a ranked session where I just, you know, played a bunch of games with Garuda using progressive. Now, the reason I use progressive is because Garuda himself does actually suffer from the classic inputs quite regularly. Anyone that was doing his combo challenges will know that trying to cancel buttons into DP, incredibly difficult. You get a lot of supers by accident. Sometimes you'll get, you know, the sword forward by mistake as well. And all in all, it's not a very good time, and it makes him feel very uncomfortable to play. Now, progressive, we're going to check out the command list, and you guys should be able to see instantly the difference. The difference between progressive and classic is that progressive is a single movement and then a button at the same time, rather than a motion which you would have in classic. So instead of down forward, we have forward and punch. Instead of DP, you know, forward, down forward, it's just down forward, and it's the same for the half circle and the reverse DP. As you can see here, it's just one input. For the specials and the supers, we can see on the supers it's forward back punch, back forward punch, and back forward kick. So anyone that has played a NetherRealm game will be familiar with that motion. But basically, this just means that we're replacing the quarter circles with just individual movements. So forward and punch is now our down forward and punch. Down forward punch is DP, where it used to be a DP motion. Forward and kick is our half circle back forward. And down back punch is our reverse DP. So straight away, we can tell that the motion itself is so much easier to work with because it's basically one button press rather than a motion itself. When it comes to supers, it's the same thing. Forward back punch will give us the super. Back forward punch will give us a super. And forward back kick will also give us a super. This is different for every character. It's not universal, like, you know, forward, back. It's obviously those motions, but the button might be different. It does entirely depend on the character that you're going to be playing. But this is the basic level of the input of progressive. But the big thing for me is the fact that progressive eliminates the input problems. If I want to cancel into DP now, I can do this every single time without fail. If I want to run in and do down forward, you know, punch, or quarter circle forward punch off a medium kick, progressively, we can get this 100% of the time, because the game is looking for a single input rather than a motion. It's looking for forward and punch. It's looking for down forward punch. All of this is individual movements and then a button, which means that when we're trying to cancel into them, it's almost completely impossible that we get the wrong special move in this situation. Even like tight links, like, you know, like medium, medium, heavy, like this one. This is kind of tricky to do into DP because it's so quick, whereas on progressive, this kind of combo, which does massive damage, but can be very, very awkward to learn and does lend itself to the classic input errors, does become way more manageable once we have progressive, because we can just simply do down forward punch instead. The reason we can obtain this easily, and this is the one thing to instruct you guys on, is every time you go to do a special, you have to reset the D-pad back to neutral. You can't just hold down medium kick and then kind of slide your thumb over and do forward punch. This is suggesting you're on a pad, by the way, where you would hold down for the medium kick and then just simply slide your forward down as if you were doing quarter circle forward. It doesn't work that way for progressive. You have to let go of the D-pad, reset to neutral for a split second, and then do forward and punch, and that allows you to special cancel instead. So basically, that's really all there is to it, guys. The difference between classic and progressive is that classic has all of the old school methods. It plays exactly as you would expect, but the old, somewhat janky issues that you could get with the control scheme do actually return as well. They can be worked around, and you can simply put, get used to them. Some really good players online do use classic still, it's not a problem. But progressive does eliminate that fact at the cost of very, very simple execution. So if you still love execution and you relish high execution, classic is still going to be the variation for you. But it does seem to me that currently in its current form, progressive is, in my opinion, I think it's the superior control method, purely because you don't get those weird negative edge problems like you did have with the classic scheme. Finally, one issue you might get with progressive is instant walk backs into forward. If we have a super that is back forward like this, walking back and then doing an instant forward, if the gap isn't very big and you take a micro step back and then you just try and reactionary anti-air like that, you might get a super by mistake. So this is the one thing, just be mindful about how long you walk back before you do forward and punch or kick, because sometimes you might get a super by mistake there. But that, from what I've experienced, is the only accidental problem you might get, and I'm actually yet to get that problem in a real match, and I've been playing this all evening. So hopefully that was a bit insightful for you guys to do with the difference between progressive and classic. Hopefully it's cleared the air a little bit, and definitely get messing around with the ones that you prefer, and let me know how you think, you know, let me know how it's going for you. Personally, with Garuda, progressive feels way more useful. If you're going to play Garuda, I thoroughly recommend using this control scheme instead. So thank you for watching, I'll see you next time, and take care.